morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor to speak before you today and share insights on this topic of child psychological assessment, which is a crucial process for understanding and supporting young individuals. The child psychological assessment is a multifaceted process aimed at evaluating child's emotional, cognitive, and behavioral functioning. This process often begins when an issue is observed. It can be developmental delays, emotional challenges, behavioral irregularities. And the goal of the process is to identify these concerns and guide appropriate interventions. Why is the psychological assessment conducted? In most cases, assessments are initiated not by the children themselves, but by others in their lives who notice something unusual. And these stakeholders may include parents or legal guardians who can observe something troubling in the behavior of the child. It can be started by educators or clinicians who identify learning or emotional difficulties. It can be started by healthcare professionals who can address developmental concerns, and by legal authorities managing custody or welfare-related cases. And the reason for initiating an assessment can vary, but they share a common thread: the need to understand the child's situation comprehensively and chart a path forward. And we have several types of psychological assessments, each tailored for specific needs. For example, it can be clinical diagnosis to identify mental health issues like anxiety, depression, or behavioral disorders. It can be neuropsychological assessment to evaluate cognitive functioning, brain health in cases of suspected brain injury or disorders like ADHD. Developmental assessment to diagnose conditions such as autism, learning disabilities. Personality assessment to understand behavioral patterns and cognitive styles. Educational assessment in which we can identify special needs and recommend recommendations for academic success. Or social diagnosis to determine the impact of social and cultural factors on the patient's mental health and on his emotional and behavioral problems. While many psychological evaluations are initiated voluntarily by parents or legal guardians, there are certain situations, particularly within the legal processes, which necessitate mandatory assessments. These evaluations are essential for understanding the child's needs, experiences, and challenges, and they help guide decisions that profoundly impact their lives. The common scenarios requiring mandatory psychological assessment, US lawyers know this very well. Child custody, visitation, adoption, abuse and neglect cases, juvenile justice system, education, special needs, medical decision making, guardianship proceedings, child immigration cases, child testimony in legal proceedings, or child labor and exploitation. In most cases, the problem and its consequences can be defined in negative terms. Some disorders, developmental deficits, diseases, problems with dealing with emotions. However, sometimes the problem may have some positive connotation. For example, the child's intelligence level is much above average. And this can be a problem because the child may be bored in class or may have some other deficits, social deficits. Such a problem, we all want to have a very high intelligence level, but for the child, it may have negative consequences as well. Therefore, it requires appropriate treatment. And psychological assessment often occur during difficult or challenging times for a child. These situations can be framed through the lens of psychological stress. Stress levels depend on how the child perceives And the assessment, either it can perceive as a threat or as a challenge. This perception, in turn, is influenced by several factors, including the reason for the diagnosis, the attitudes of the child and their parents or guardians toward the examination, or on the child's familiarity with the diagnostician and the testing environment. Regardless of the specifics, psychological assessments are usually prompted by a concern. Parents, guardians, teachers, doctors often notice behaviors that deviate from what is expected for the child's developmental stage. These concerns might range from delays in speech, development difficulty, or difficulty socializing to emotional dysregulation, or sometimes advanced intellectual abilities that pose their own challenges. And the child's perspective on the diagnostic process is based around how the problem and process are framed by the adults in their life. Younger children, due to limited understanding, might perceive the diagnostic process as a game or as a play with a new person. Older children and adolescents, however, may view it through the more serious lens of evaluation, which can trigger anxiety, fear, or even resistance. And this response is influenced by awareness and knowledge. Yes, younger child may not grasp the implications of a diagnosis, perceiving the process as a neutral or even enjoyable if conducted in a supportive environment. But older children may have heightened awareness of potential consequences, leading to fear of judgment or rejection. And the attitude of adults around the children is also crucial. Children pick up on emotions of their parents or guardians. If parents are anxious or fearful, and children may adopt similar attitudes toward the assessment. So a supportive, calm approach by adults can alleviate stress and foster cooperation. And the child's personality experience is also vital. Some children are naturally more open, more trusting, while others may be withdrawn or apprehensive, especially in unfamiliar environments. The issue of voluntariness is critical in determining how the child perceives and engages in the assessment. Nobody likes to be forced to anything. While children are not typically in a position to provide formal consent, their cooperation and acceptance are essential for meaningful results. A sense of coercion can lead to resistance, unreliable responses, or outright refusal to participate. This is also a concern from an ethical perspective. Psychologists must strive to gain the child's acceptance of the process. Without it, there is a significant risk of distorted outcomes, which may result in misguided conclusions and future harm. Fear of judgment and its impact is also a topic. Older children with greater self-awareness often grapple with the fear of being judged. They may worry that their personal traits or abilities will be labeled as bad, inadequate, or abnormal, and this can later manifest in several ways. It can lead to reluctance to participate. Children may want to complete the process quickly or to avoid the process at all. They may attempt to present themselves in an overly favorable light, leading to inaccurate results. And they can reject the process, feeling it infringes on their autonomy. And the most important is the role of the diagnostician. The diagnostician's behavior and approach are pivotal in shaping the child's experience. A supportive, empathetic professional can reduce anxiety and encourage honest, open participation. Building trust and creating a child-friendly environment are essential strategies for mitigating stress and fostering cooperation. And in conclusion, psychological assessment can be profoundly stressful or conversely positively challenging for a child. The outcome depends on the interplay of factors such as the behavior of parents, guardians, and diagnosticians, as well as the environment in which the assessment takes place. Ultimately, the goal is to serve the child's best interest. Whether through education, therapy, or legal processes, psychological assessment act as tools that guide decisions for the child's future. And by approaching this process with care, respect, and sensitivity, we ensure that these assessments fulfill their intended purpose to support the child's growth, well-being, and potential. Thank you.